Hi, peace be upon you, folks. In this video, I would like to talk about encounter with angels. Um, I was inspired to do it by two YouTube, two YouTube personalities. First one is Stephen Ben-Nun. Well, he actually convinced me to do it from Israeli News Live. I kind of like Stephen Ben-Nun from Israeli News Live. He seems like one of the more sincere and more truthful people that you can find online. I can't remember which video it is exactly. It may have been this one on Amazing Discovery on Faith or something like that. Um, but before that, um, I sometimes watch videos from Sister Carrie. Sometimes I'm just curious with some of these so-called prophets and prophetesses because I believe the artificial intelligence, the control system, the beast system. Now, obviously, I don't know how truthful they are, these people, but I believe the system has to train also in aspects of prophecy and things like that. We've come across a lot of so-called prophets and prophetesses, and you know, I don't know what the agenda it is behind here, but sometimes I'm just curious to know. But anyway, that said, she has a few videos in which she talks about the second Exodus. This is actually something I believe in, but I believe it's an Islamic concept. So, that's where we alter, right? I believe in the second Exodus as well, And but one thing she has been talking about is the fact that, the point that there will be angels assigned to people. So you would have angels that come down and basically direct you as to where you must go, what you must do, and things like that, right? So, but then I didn't think much about it, but Stephen Bannon was doing a video. I think it has something to do with faith, right? Because he was talking about how the angel appeared to Zechariah, and Zechariah didn't believe the angel, right? So here it is, Luke 1:19 to 25. So, but the angel said, I am Gabriel, the sentinel of God, sent especially to bring you this glad news. But because you won't believe me, you will be unable to say a word until the day of your son's birth. So it's sort of like Zechariah came to, the angel Gabriel came to Zechariah, gave him tidings of the son, John the Baptist. In Islam, we call him Yahya, right? The prophet Yahya. And, but according to the Bible narration, he doubted the angel, the truthfulness of the angel. So the sign that was given is, oh, well, you will not be able to speak for, a few days. That pushed me to say something about encounter with angels, right? I need to charge my. Anyway, let's carry on. So, I would like to start. I can close this now. I don't think I need it anymore. You get the point. I'll start with what it means in Islam to get like an inspiration, a divine inspiration, sort of like what somebody might call prophecy, but that's not necessarily it, right? So, um, it says the Quran teaches that Allah communicated with all his prophets and messengers in one of the following. And there they are quoting the Quran now, and it goes, I quote, and it is not given to a mortal man that God should speak to him. Otherwise, other than, it's not always the same way they translate into English. It's not given that God should speak to a human person except through inspiration or from behind a curtain, right? So even when the Lord spoke to Moses or when he spoke to the prophets during the ascension, it's not like direct speech, okay? It's from behind the curtain or by sending a messenger, right, to reveal. So it can be like, an angel as a messenger to reveal. So these are the three ways the Lord sends a message, an inspiration, right? So the inspiration, the sudden inspiration or wahi, that is knowledge inspired into the heart through the medium of dreams or when he would be awake, right? Intense to the point. Anyway, so the prophet got inspiration from in all these three methods. So it is not um, foreign, it is not absurd to expect that the Lord will send you an angel. Um, I believe, though, that it is not likely. And even if the Lord were to do that, he would prepare you by increasing you in knowledge through the other forms, through especially inspiration or prophetic dreams first. So you increase that enlightenment, right? You open up to another reality. I'll give you an example. In my country, Sierra Leone, West Africa, and many other countries within the region of Africa, I'm not sure about Europeans. I've not heard this from Europeans, but probably the Hispanics do it too, right? There are some people. In one of my previous videos, I mentioned something like that as well. There are some people that are born with that vibrational energy that they can see beyond the physical material dimension. So some people can see um, like a witch. They can see some people who are like in a gene form, like pretending to be human. So they can see a little bit beyond this reality. And there is a process they do back home, right, in African cultures, wherein, let's say, a child is born with this ability, but and the parents start sensing it, right? I've heard of a few people, even within in my family, that maybe when they were kids, they would basically snitch. They would say, "Oh, I saw you last night," blah blah blah, right? So I guess within that realm, there's a level of secrecy. Like, even if like this person is bad, you do not necessarily come and out them. You can give advice to somebody you think they're harming, right? Tell them something that maybe hints at you need to protect yourself better. You need to read more Quran and things like that. But anyway, they have this process. So if the parents fear for the child that somebody might harm the child because maybe the child sees too much or the child is seeing a lot of things that are scary. I guess in Western cultures, they just call them, some of them might be imaginary friends, but it's not always imaginary, right? It's just that you can see it. Anyway, so a process they do sometimes is they say basically they close the child's eye, right? So in back home, they say you have eyes, right? You have basically almost like you have the third eye. So they will call some people, do a ceremony, and they close that eye so that the child will no longer be able to see beyond that realm. Because if you have that ability, another thing they say is you can also be recruited into witchcraft, right? It's almost like a vivid dream, a lucid dream type of ability, right? So I don't support this. I don't think it's Islamic, right? Because for me, it's almost like you have an ability, but you're so scared of that ability. So the first person that lends you a hand and says, let me take care of this for you. Just leave it all to me, right? For me, that's how I see it. So it's almost like a demon or a devil comes and says, you're scared, you don't want to be harmed. Why don't you leave this ability to me? Give it unto me, I shall protect you from encountering some of the evil of this. So basically, you're giving away your birthright. That's how I see it. But I do understand, right, why some people fear and why some people do it so that their kids don't grow up like that. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because I feel like it ties into some of these encounter with angels, so-called angels, because I don't believe all of them are angels, right? And that's the point I want to get at. Um, so if we're looking at, let's say, Surah Al-Qasas, when the mother of Moses gave birth to him and Pharaoh was killing the babies, right? Allah says in the Quran, the 28th chapter, verse 7, and we inspired to the mother of Moses, suckle him. But when you fear for him, cast him into the river, and do not fear and do not grieve. Indeed, we will return him to you and will make him of the messengers, right? So Moses' mother received inspiration, right, to do that. Um, I'm going to close that. I don't need to get too much into detail with that. Now, in this other surah, this other chapter, um, okay, I think this was the part I wanted to get at. All right. So it's a story about Abraham, the prophet Ibrahim in Islam, right? So most of us are familiar with this story, wherein he left his family because they were practicing polytheism, right? We're familiar also with this part wherein they built like a furnace, um, and they were about to throw the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam into the furnace, right? There is this dispute. Some people say an angel came to Abraham and told him, "Oh, what do you want me to do for you?" Right? One narration, which is rejected by scholars, is that he says, I don't want you to do anything for me. And they say, and the angel then says, well, why don't you call upon Allah? And he replies, Allah already knows my condition, so I don't need to call upon him. This is rejected because the Quran says, um, right, they say, burn him and support your gods, right? And what did Abraham say? He said, okay, it's not here because sometimes the Quran might just give a narration somewhere and then another narration in another place. But basically, he says, uh, he says, sufficient for me is Allah, right? He didn't say, oh, I'm not going to call upon Allah. He said, Allah is sufficient for me, right? So it may be true that the angel Gabriel came to him and asked if he needed help. And he said, no, not from you. My help is from Allah, right? So then if we continue here, right? The angels, Abraham had moved to the new place. Uh, 1 second. Let me see. All right, I'm back. So, yes, we're talking about Abraham. So Abraham moved from his father's land and moved to the promised land. Him and a few people, I guess. The prophet Lot was one of them. Lot was a prophet and a messenger. Abraham, yes, was a messenger as well. I believe so. Um, so I've given you that narration. We've talked about encounter with angels. We've talked about the fact that Zechariah, the angel came to Zechariah, as seen in the Bible in Luke. I would give you the narration in the Quran, right, about Zechariah. So we've talked about Abraham when he was thrown in the furnace. Um, the hadith, the narration that within Islam, right? And the probably the correct view, because Abraham wouldn't say, I'm not going to ask Allah, Allah already knows, right? But basically, it's possible the angel came and he says, no, I don't need from you, I need from Allah. I'm going to ask Allah. Allah is sufficient for me, right? The God is sufficient for me. But we can leave that aside. Let's continue with um, when the angels came to Abraham and they gave him tidings of Isaac, right? A learned boy, right? So treating of guests is a very important thing in the religion. We see that with Abraham, we see that with the prophet Lot. Peace be upon both of them. So the Quran says in the 11th chapter, right? And certainly did our messengers come to Abraham with good tidings. They said peace. He said peace. And he did not delay in bringing them a roasted calf. So he went, prepared a meal, brought it for them. And when he saw that their hands, when he saw their hands not reaching for it, he distrusted them, and he felt from them apprehension. He felt from them fear. They said, fear not, we have been sent to the people of Lot, right? So they gave him tidings of Isaac, and then Jacob after Isaac. Then Abraham argued about the people of Lot. The Bible tells us something about that. Asked, why would they destroy the town? What if there are 10 righteous people? Blah, blah, blah. Abraham was indeed forbearing and grieving, frequently returning to Allah, repenting. So now we move on to Lot, the prophet Lot, alayhi salam. When our messengers came to Lot, he was anguished for them and felt from them great discomfort and said, this is a trying day. He's living in this town of godless people, people who assault people in the road, they rape people, right? And he's received guests. And we already said treating of guests is very important in the religion, like treating guests nicely. So he's already in fear for them. So he's thinking this is a very trying day, right? That he's got these guests. And when you get these guests, they're under your protection because they're your guests. So the people came to him, hastening before him, you know. He offered his daughters. I talked about this in one of my first videos on this channel, why he would do such a thing. But like we said, this is about the idea that your guests are under your protection. Anyway, so they said, let's go. The angel said, O Lord, indeed we are messengers of your Lord. They will not reach you. So they're saying these evil people will not be able to harm you. Don't worry. So set out with your family during a portion of the night, right? Now, let's now look at Zechariah. So we've talked about a few encounter with angels. Hopefully we'll be able to tie it all together. In Surah Al-Maryam, which means Mary, the 19th chapter of the Quran, it talks about the birth of Jesus, right? The ordeal that Mary went through, and then ultimately the birth of Jesus, right? But it opens up with Zechariah. Um, so Zechariah prayed for like a successor. Um, the angels announced, yeah, right? Or I mean, he announced an angel. I mean, I don't think it really says the angels. It just says, yeah, Zechariah. Just that's why sometimes they put it in these sort of brackets. It's like the idea that, oh, they're deciding that, or the angels announced. But basically, it starts with, oh, Zechariah, indeed, we give you good news of a son, right? The birth of a son, whose name will be John, Yahya in Islam, a name we have not given to any before. And then here, right, there might be disputes, and I want to clear that before we go further. Probably he's the first person to have been called John in our life, like. But let's say there was this name before, if it's even possible. It doesn't mean that's his name in heaven. It doesn't mean that's the name that God has called him out with. That's the name that God has called him forth with, right? So basically, before him, nobody had been given this name. Just take it like that. So he wondered, my Lord, how can I have a son when my wife is barren? So sometimes the angel is a messenger of God, right? The angel comes with God's message. Well, you don't need to talk to the angel directly. The angel doesn't have power. The angel only does what God wants him to do. His power is within what Allah has given him power to do, right? So you can talk to God through the angel. God can reply through the angel, but you're not addressing the angel as a God or as a Lord or something like that, right? Even in the Quran, I was sometimes people just put these videos up online just to make disputes, splitting hairs, thinking they're so smart, coming up with things. Oh, why did the Quran put it like that? Like, dude, come on. You have to read the Quran frequently, often enough for you to get a feel of it. The Quran itself says this is a word of a noble messenger, talking about the angel Gabriel, right? Sometimes God uses the term we, which is like the royal we, right? When God created the heavens and the earth, sometimes he can use first person, or the message, which is the Quran or the messenger, uses third person referring to God. But let's say an ambassador goes somewhere. He can read a letter. We as a country have decided to establish this. He can also read a quote from the president himself read in the first person. So that is not something people should be too worried about. Anyway, this is not just want to sidetrack a little bit, address that. So yeah, he wondered, my Lord, how can I have a son when my wife is barren and I have become extremely old? The angel replied, so will it be. Your Lord says it is easy for me, right? So what if he didn't say, your Lord says? Because sometimes, like I said, it would just say it is easy for me, the first person. But anyway, just as it is easy for me, just as I created you before when you were nothing. Zechariah said, my Lord, grant me a sign. He responded, your sign is that you will not speak to people for 3 nights, despite being healthy. So the Quranic narration is a little bit different from the Bible. It's not like the angel is like, oh, because you will not believe me, right? Which of course the angel will be talking from God's authority. It's not like the angel on his own will say, because you don't believe me, I'm going to put this upon you. It may be that God says, oh, because you would not believe my messenger. But the Quranic narration is different, right? In the Quranic narration, it's Zechariah who asked for a sign, right? He doubted a little bit, how can I? The angel replied, he said, your Lord says it is easy for me. I created you before you were nothing, right? So now that we've looked at these narrations, what point am I trying to get at? these were people who were enlightened, right? It's like they say, prophets always have true dreams, right? Their dreams are not as easily crazy like our dreams, right? They've reached a higher level of enlightenment. Some of those prophets have additional talents God gave them. Solomon, for example, alayhi salam, whom the Christians have made up a lot of stories about, but the Quran refutes that. Solomon never practiced black magic. I mean, come on. People sometimes they don't respect some of these prophets enough. And that's where sometimes you have to think about some of the Jews who were writing some of these scriptures, right? I don't want to say Israelites because, you know, Israelites usually chosen people. Yes, I believe a lot of us are Israelites. But the group sometimes, it's not like they're all bad, but they made the religion was always Islam. That's why for me, in fact, even as a Muslim, I support the establishment of Israel. I don't care about names, but I support the name Israel more than Palestine because of our prophets, David, Solomon, Moses, etc. Even Jacob and Isaac, who are all our prophets. They were Muslims, they were Israel, right? I support the establishment of Israel, a Muslim nation. And that's why even when we talk about the second Exodus, I believe in that, not just because of Israel. In fact, maybe I'll talk on that a little bit. But I've talked about that before in other videos, right? There are narrations in Islam that talk about when the Mahdi, who some people believe is different from the Messiah, some people believe they're one and the same, but basically, he's going to gather the people, unite a group of the Muslims. Not all of them might believe in him and follow him, right? And then he will make his way towards the Holy Land, and the people will gather to attack him. So even in one of my videos, I talk about how they're playing these rituals out to try to establish prophecies, which I think they're just making up, right? In ultimately, inevitably, they might establish the true prophecies while they are trying to manufacture prophecies. You can look at my other videos for more details on that. But yes, so basically, I believe Israel is a group of Muslims, and they will do a migration to the Holy Land. I talk about end time messengers and all that. That video also has details on that. But what I'm getting at with this encounter with angels is these are people who are enlightened, right? They've gotten certain abilities. If they cannot recognize when an angel comes in human form to say, oh, this is an angel, why are some people so sure that when the time comes for migration, exodus, which I believe the evil people are going to try to manufacture something that resembles the truth. So somebody comes, you don't know if it's a demon or an angel, and all of a sudden you believe that he was sent from God. Some people think it's as easy as saying, who is your Lord and Savior? They're like, oh, Jesus is my Lord and Savior. They're like, oh, yeah, well, he's truthful. I mean, I don't think it's that straightforward. The point I'm getting at is we've looked at all these encounters with angels. Lot feared for his guests because he didn't know they were angels. He didn't know they had been sent to even punish the people. He didn't know they can protect themselves. He just saw them as people. Abraham went and made food for the angels. When they wouldn't eat, he felt fear. Then he started suspecting these might not be people, right? He didn't know before. This is Abraham, like one of our top fathers, right? Zechariah, the angel spoke to him, right? Maybe the angel didn't appear, but they spoke to him. Is he going to just trust the voice in his head that, oh yeah, this is God, definitely, you know? And I believe that's why I say a lot of people saying prophecies, they might be hearing things, whether by the artificial intelligence or Satan himself trying to prepare some groundwork. right? Because you have to do a lot of trial runs. You have to get a lot of data on people and this and that. But there's going to be great deception. People have to be very careful. All right. But sometimes some of these so-called prophets and prophetesses, it gives you a glimpse of some of the things they're thinking about. The people at the the people who are trying to manufacture prophecies. It gives you a glimpse of what they're thinking about. Anyway, so we've talked about inspiration. Moses' mother got inspiration. But the point I'm trying to make is encounter with angels is not as straightforward as we might think, right? There's this now, the Muslims don't like Paul, the Paul from the Bible, right? The guy who was never one of the disciples, but apparently an angel came to him on his journey. I shouldn't do that. I shouldn't mock like that. Sometimes you get carried away. Anyway, I shouldn't do that. But it's not easy for a human being to decide that, oh, I'm not being deceived. Oh, this is truly an angel, right? And that's why I'm a proponent of seeking a personal relationship with God. When the time comes near, He might begin to open you up, increase you in enlightenment, right? So that you might not even need an angel to come. Because now let's go back to the story of the thing they do in my culture where they close the third eye, basically, of a child, right? Let's say you you're becoming enlightened, you're becoming awakened to this reality, this world you didn't know existed. You start engaging in fear. And this is something I believe, maybe this is something I'm supposed to say because I believe this might happen. I've had a dream wherein I'm sitting on a bed, right? I'm wrapped in a blanket and I'm in a lot of fear, right? And there were ants crawling on the blanket. I was not worried about the ants, but I know I was in fear. And I have other videos where I don't know if I talk about this dream, but I talk about I have that's one of the videos that has three parts. I talk about different dreams that I believe are prophetic. And I've had another one wherein like it's almost like we knew the time something was going to happen, right? And when the time came, there was this black goo coming from like a woman's eye, and I had to embrace her, and I kept reciting a few things in Arabic. But the point I'm making is a time might come when the veil might be thin or torn, right? When the Lord might, when Satan might fall and the spirit of Adam ascends, right? We get awakened, we finish our exile. And this is what I believe is the true meaning of the rapture, right? I don't believe there's a rapture in physical form. I believe, and I have a video on that as well. I believe that um, we will come to the time of our exile, the end of our exile. And that's the time that Satan truly falls, and then we ascend once more, right? Because I believe just like Adam was taught the names of all things, the Messiah, who is the son of Adam, the heir, whom in another video I say why I think he's born in paradise. He was probably the only one born in paradise before the fall, right? I believe he's also going to be taught the names of all things, right? So we're going to reach that high level of technology once more and things like that. But that's not the important aspect of this. So a time might come when that so-called third eye, and I don't mean it in the Kundalini sense, this yoga or Hindu sense. I mean it in the true um, monotheistic from the Lord sense, right? That awakened mind, that's life, that you granted life once more, right? When you're open to this reality, there are even things in our physical world that we're afraid of. So imagine being able to see beyond. I'm not saying you're going to be able to see angels all around you, know what they all look like, the different levels of the angels, but there might be levels to enlightenment. You may very likely be able to see maybe beyond the gene world, the world of demons, be able to see people for what they truly are. There will be a lot of fear. Now, within that fear, when that fear comes, you're going to be tempted to sell your birthright. You're going to be tempted if the devils know that something is happening to you, becoming enlightened, brain chemistry is changing, magnetic field of your brain is changing. They can sense that something is happening, right? They can come, they be like, oh, the Lord has sent us. We're here to help you. Give us a hand. Give me your hand. Put your trust in me. I will make this easy for you. You not knowing, instead of just saying, Allah knows already. I put my trust in Allah. Sufficient for me is Allah. You say, okay, I give it unto you. I trust you completely. Now you've put your faith in something you don't even know, something you can't even tell if it's a true angel or not. And once you sell that birthright, now you have a demon attached to your mind, controlling how much you see, how much how much of your senses you see. So even the things you're supposed to see, you might not be able to see them anymore because now they have the power. And now even your ability and things that maybe that was supposed to be your talent, now they have access to that, right? So the point I'm making is you have to be very careful putting your trust in something you don't know. And you have to think about all these encounters with angels and why all these great prophets and messengers didn't just take the word of somebody who said, oh, yes, I'm an angel, I've been sent. How do I know? So there might be a time that is coming that, the Lord might awaken us. And this might almost make you want to go crazy with fear and nervousness and thinking, what is happening to me? Hopefully we put our trust in the Lord during that time and he takes us through it successfully. So it's the same thing with the second Exodus. Be very careful for somebody coming around and saying, oh, I'm your angel, when the Lord has not maybe prepared you. And obviously, I think Satan is also working for his counterfeit. So he's preparing some people. They think they're encountering truth and things like that. Try to have a relationship with God. Try to put your trust in God, and hopefully he will guide you to the truth. Because it's like Allah says in the Quran, it says, all of his messengers, whenever Allah would reveal, inspire, Satan will try to muddy the water, right? Insert something there, insert some falsehood, insert some doubt. But he says it is for Allah to make clear the truth from the falsehood, right? To separate what Satan has put so that the person is even more enlightened, right? Because sometimes deception is important, right? If every day you just dealing in truth, what happens when you come across devils? What happens when you come across bad people? You become too naive, right? But sometimes deception is important, even to get you to that extra level. It's like some of us have this experience when we were in class. Sometimes you learn a lot more from a mistake in a maths class than you do, or any class, in fact, than you do from things you get right. Because when you make that mistake and you get corrected, sometimes you realize, oh, there's something deeper to this concept that I wasn't thinking about. I thought I understood this concept. But because you got that thing wrong, trying to correct it and learning from it will increase you to an even higher level. So that's it. I hope this video was beneficial. Peace be upon you, folks. May the Lord guide us to the truth.